Hi Greedy 3Ders. As a massive Star Wars fan and a 3D printer, the Holy Grail, I believe, is sat behind me at the moment. Han Solo in Carbonite. It's not as difficult as you may think to make this, and I will talk you through the whole process step by step. If you're interested, stay tuned. So after scouring the internet, I found this file on Etsy, and what I liked about this was it's already split into parts that will fit onto my printers, being the Bambu Labs A1 and Elegoo Centurite Carbon. Now I'm printing the whole thing with Sunlu PLA 2+, and it's what they sent me. The company Sunlu, fantastic. They've really supported Greedy 3D. It's not sponsored by Sunlu, but they did send me this wonderful filament so that I could make Mr. Solo for you guys, and everything came vacuum packed as you would expect, and I popped the first of many parts onto the A1. I'm using a 10% infill, and I did choose enable supports with tree supports, but none was printed on most of these prints. I laid everything flat to try to give it the best chance to get in a decent covering, and I didn't put loads and loads of pieces on one build plate. I tried to do them separately unless they were really small and I could get quite a few on. Now each part took different times. This one was about a 10-hour print, and I printed it in that wonderful Sunlu orange. At the same time, over on the Elegoo Carbon, this one was getting a very similar experience with same PLA on this Elegoo machine. Again, both of these machines wonderful. If you want to see reviews of them both, don't hesitate to have a look in my library where you will see them both. There is Mr. Solo's head, all done. Doesn't he look cool? That looks amazing. Everything printed with no issues. I did have one problem further on down the line where one of the larger pieces just failed on the last quarter of an inch, but it's no problem. I managed to fill that. But all the pieces were then printed, and if you haven't got one of these tools, I absolutely urge you to get one, because if you're making a big build with PLA, this deburring tool is absolutely amazing. You know, all those sharp edges, the ones that you end up cutting all your fingers on and they get in the way when you're trying to join pieces, this deburring tool just scrapes them away. And not only that, it helps with the stress. I found this a great stress reliever, slicing through bits of plastic with this deburring tool de-stressor. It was great. I'll put a link in the description where you can get one of these from, but I do really urge you to get one. The only thing I needed to do with any of these parts was this, really. I didn't need to do any sanding. I didn't really need to do any filling, although there's a couple of areas that are a little bit iffy. The hand failed a little bit, but I'm going to fill that later with a little bit of resin. Everything was done, and yep, you are seeing me tidy up my mess. Do not tell Mrs. Greedy. What I thought I'd do then is just lay it out on the patio just to have a little look and see how big it is and make sure all the pieces fitted. So I laid it out on the patio. My neighbour actually commented here asking why there was a dead man on the patio, and somebody else commented that it looks like he's a bit too colourful. Of course, the loads of different Sunlu colours will be remedied and brought down into one colour, but there he is. You can see if you just look around now on the left, there's the gap which will be filled, but everything else is hunky-dory, all wonderful. I glued them together just using some super glue and again some activator. You know, if you've watched this channel, I don't use glue, I don't use anything else. I just use this and activator. And the other thing is he's going to be flat on a board, so I'm going to be gluing him down as well. So this will be enough. I think if I weren't gluing him flat on a board, I would have used something like epoxy resin just to hold him together, but I didn't need to. So the super glue did its job, and didn't take too long before all the pieces went in. Everything fitted together really, really well. The tolerances on these printers are really, really good. I didn't have much filling to do. There's always going to be a little bit of filling when you're making something this big, but realistically, there wasn't a load of work to do. So let's get Mr. Solo all together, and when he's all together, we can have a quick look at him just standing up. But before that, I'm going to use some of this kitchen worktop board, and the measurements I've used for this, it's 60 across by 175 down. My initial plan was to put it on the back of a door, but I don't think it's going to fit the door that I was looking at, so I'm not quite sure where he's going to go yet. But as I said to Mrs. Greedy, you know, let's not worry about that now. Let's get Mr. Solo finished, and then we can worry about where it goes. I'm just cleaning everything with a bit of IPA just to make sure that it's nice and clean. I let it dry, and then I used some no nails. The other thing that I did do is I drew around him just to make sure I knew exactly where he was going to be going on the board, so that I knew where to put the no nails. And I'm going to stick him down, add a few miscellaneous weights on him just to hold him down until he has a good old chance to set. It was some beautiful weather here in the UK, so the heat did certainly help with the setting process, as did all the weights. What I then did was I just went round all the edges with the same no nails, and then I used my finger to just smooth it in. Two reasons for this. One was to help the gluing process, and two, just to make a nice even join where the two pieces meet. And I did the whole thing with that. Again, thoroughly enjoyable but time consuming, going around the whole of Mr. Solo with this no nails. There's quite a few bits to do now to add in the Carbonite, but I wanted to get him all sealed in and glued in first, so that I can get all the weights off him and move on to the next stage. And there he is, just baking nicely in the sun until he's all dry and ready for next step. And here is next step. I've took a bit of just normal 3D printing resin. I've mixed it with some talcum powder just to thicken it up a little bit. And what I'm going to do now is I am going to go over the joins in him where the two pieces of PLA have mixed. I'm also going to cover that over anywhere where there is a layer line, and I'm going to make sure I brush it in really well. Make sure you wear your gloves for this one. I'm doing it in a fairly decently ventilated area, got windows and doors open. Paint it all on there, and when it's on there and it's been well and truly moulded and rubbed into where you need it to go, and that's quite important. You don't need any lumps or bumps really. I'm going to take a UV light and I'm going to cure it, and I'm going to do this with pretty much all the joints down the model and anywhere there's a layer line. So this one is going to take me a little bit of time to do, so have a listen to a little bit of music while that occurs. Now there is going to be some sanding to do, but the first thing I'm going to do once I've got everything on is I'm going to clean it. So I've covered him in IPA, absolutely covered him. There is a little bit of a sticky film that you get after doing it this way. For some reason everything doesn't cure completely, so I'm going to give him a really good clean because I don't want him to be sticky, and then I'm going to stick him outside in the UK sun to do his final bit of baking. I can't say that very often in the UK, can we? Once he'd done, I brought him back in and I got my trusty foot sander, and there was a few little areas I just wanted to work on. There was not a huge amount to do, but I got my foot sander on him. I got a little bit of a hand sander as well, and I just went all the way across the areas of him that I wanted to just tidy up, just on some of the joins, just where the resin had pooled perhaps a little bit too much, and I just wanted to smooth him off just a little bit really. I don't want to go overboard with this. Don't forget, he's going to be in Carbonite, and that is quite forgiving, so you can get away with a lot. But I did want to go over a few bits, and once I'd done that, just to tidy up that quite rough edges of that 60 grit sandpaper, I just went over him again with the same UV resin with a tiny bit of talc in, and I cured it, and he is ready for the next stage, which is the Carbonite. I'm using all-purpose filler for this, and I got 2 little tubs of this really cheap stuff. I think 2 tubs cost me just under £6 from a local hardware store. And one of the things that a bit of advice that I would give you with this is water it down. I didn't do it to start with. I literally just plonked it on with my hand, and it's just not runny enough when you do it this way. If you can think of anything else we can use for this as well, pop it in the comments below. But I thought of this right from the start, that I'm just going to use some filler. And what I did discover really quickly was I needed a squirty bottle with some water in it. And once I established that, it spread around a lot easier, it moved easier, it pooled easier. and it meant that I could just work up to the edges of Mr. Solo and try and smooth that join up to make sure you don't see too much of a join between Mr. Solo and the actual Carbonite. So that took a fair few hours, this one, and don't rush this. Do you know what, I quite enjoyed doing this bit. It was quite chillaxing, to be honest, just rubbing this on and the Carbonite stuff on, and I found it stress relieving, to put it mildly. But take your time with this, try not to get any jagged areas, smooth it down with your hand, make sure it's wet. And again, that UK sun, it's come in handy for this, I absolutely tell you. I left this outside to dry for probably 8 hours until it was thoroughly dried. It says longer on the tin, but in this weather I think it does dry a bit quicker. Back to resin, and then what I did here was some of the actual filler had little tiny cracks in it, and I was going to do this anyway, but just to cover those cracks and just to give it that shiny complexion and just to cover the whole thing once more, I took some of this resin and I covered Mr. Solo in that. As I say, for me, it not only covers the cracks, it gives it a look of shiny Carbonite, and that's kind of what I wanted. Make sure once you've gone over everything though with this, you do cure everything as thoroughly as you can, and you also then get your IPA on a rag and clean it off. You don't want that sticky residue on here really, and no matter how much curing you do, you can't get rid of that, so make sure you clean it off. Once he was done and I'd got everything done and cleaned, I popped him back outside again in the sunshine and left him there for about 3 hours, cleaning with some IPA just while he's standing there too. Now the next stage, of course, is the painting, and I'm going to be using this gunmetal from Rust-Oleum to give it a base layer. I've seen some people use black, and that's absolutely fine, but I had a can of this or two knocking around, so I thought, why not use it? And I'm in a well ventilated space, I'm outside, I'm not using a mask here, perhaps I should have been, but I am, in the middle of the garden, and I'm going to give him a coat all the way across. I gave him a coat first, just making sure I gave him an even coat, and then I went across the Carbonite. I had no runs, but you know what, if I had got any runs I really wouldn't care, because this Carbonite, as I said earlier, is so forgiving. You can get away with it and it would look like part of the actual Carbonite. So next step, titanium silver, and I'm not going to go mad with this. All I'm going to do is give him a light coat all the way across, especially him and on the Carbonite, but not too heavy. I don't want to take away from that Rust-Oleum gunmetal that sits below it. Then I'm going to do a wash, and all I did for that was I got some black paint, I put it into my little squirty bottle, put a bit of water in there. It's not diluted much because I don't want a really, really watery solution. And I gave it a squirt across, and as soon as it had landed on the model, I got a bit of kitchen roll and I mopped it off. What I want is that wash effect, so some of the darker wash will sit into the background of his face and his lips and his eyes and all the little sort of crannies and nooks across Mr. Solo. It will sit also in the background of the Carbonite effect that the filler has left behind. And I wasn't too impressed with this. It looked okay, and it did what it wanted to do, but it wasn't quite dark enough. So I got my airbrush, I put some of that black in there, and I really carefully just went around some of the low areas. Now again, if you haven't got an airbrush and you're not able to do this, it doesn't really matter. It looked okay with the wash, but I just wanted to do a little bit more. So not only did I go all around him and along him and in all the grooves with this very light coating of a dark paint, I also splattered it across as well. So I dropped the pressure of the tank and I just splattered it to put a little few drops or little speckles of black all over, and that was another effect that I added in, as I felt that's what Carbonite may have. Then I got a chrome paint, popped it onto a dry brush, and I went across quite a few of the extremity areas of Han, his lips, his eyes, his nose, the ends of his hands, all the folds in his clothes, just to bring them back out, bring them up, add another layer of interest, add another layer of colour. And that was him pretty much finished. And with him done and dusted, let's have a better look at him, see what you think. And there we have it. Han is all finished and complete, and I have absolutely no clue at all where I'm going to put him. He is pretty darn big. It's quite heavy as well on the back of a worktop door to hang him off a smaller door or a thinner door, so I think he's going to end up on a wall somewhere. My advice to you would be, if you're thinking of hanging him on a door, try to reduce the weight a little bit. Use a bit of hardboard maybe, or lighter plyboard, so it doesn't strain your hinges too much, because this thing weighs a ton at the moment. Now luckily for me, I never really planned on putting him on a door. He was always going to end up on a wall somewhere, so it's not a major drama. And I had the worktop to hand, so I saved myself a few quid in wood, but it's just a bit of advice for you from my experience making him as we went along. If you do like what you see today, please let me know what you think. If you've made a Han Solo in Carbonite, have you done anything any different? Have you used any different coloured paints? Have you done anything different to make the Carbonite? I'd be really interested, as I'm sure everybody else will, to hear how other people do it. What I've done today, I hope, is made it relatively easy with products that are easy to get from your local hardware store. Please think about joining the Greedy 3D Patreon. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I just want to say a genuine heartfelt big thank you to all of my Patreons. You guys are absolutely fantastic. I hope you've enjoyed this. I've really enjoyed making this and videoing this for you guys, and I'm so glad. As I said at the start, this, for me anyway, is the Holy Grail as a Star Wars fan, and I can't believe I've got my own Han Solo in Carbonite. Hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you next time, Greedy 3D.